everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Shiz and Giggles. My name is Christine. I will be your host for today, and we have our lovely co-hosts. We have Jasmine over there. Say hi, Jasmine.
Hola, hello everyone. Happy Friday.
Hola, Jasmine. And we also have Miss Lisa. We're happy to have you, Lisa. Okay, so for today's topic, we will be talking about the future versus the past. So obviously, it's like only human nature to always like think about memories and like think about the past and even think about the future. Like even when we were in like preschool and kindergarten, our teachers would always ask us, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And that just like posed our brain to always think about the future, even if it's like long term, like, "Oh, I want to be a teacher when I grow up," or even like short term, like, "I want to eat chicken nuggets for dinner." So speaking of that topic, we're gonna start with our first question, and we're gonna start with Wissam. So the question is, in event production, is it better to focus on the future or on the past?
Sam, I don't think we can hear you. I don't think so. However, I'll answer your question, Christine, while we make sure that we can hear you. But I would say for production, is it better to forecast the future or to reflect on the past? Definitely. Oh, okay. This is something that has been taught to me for I don't know how long, but I'm a person that after an event passes or after anything passes, I like to reflect on what happened, whether it was good, bad, what have you, because I like to prepare myself for the next time something like this happens. So I know I do a lot of reflection. However, I've learned that especially if something goes wrong, like if something goes wrong, that's okay. Dust it off and then get yourself ready for the next thing that does happen. So that is something that I learned and I try to stick with me as I do go on and produce a lot of events, that even though something may have gone wrong and it may not have gone as I wanted or expected, it happens, dust it off, and just do better next time. You can't keep reflecting on the past, because it will then interfere with things that you do have coming up in the future, whether that is let's say deadlines that you have coming up or what have you. It could just mess with your mental. So that's something that I definitely was taught, and I think is a really good thing to just keep in mind when reflecting on the future or the past.
That was a great way to word it. I know here at AAP, like after every single event that we do, we have a really quick debrief meeting, like as soon as the event ends. And it's a really good way to like learn from even just like, oh, I clicked the wrong link. So you can make sure to have like all the links set up like prior to the event. It's just a really good way to like learn and be more efficient in your learning curve as well. And are we ready with Lisam's mic? Are you feeling good about speaking?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling pretty good. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, awesome.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. But to answer your question about the event industry and event production and sort of the past versus present, I do have to jump off of both what you and Jasmine said. I think reflection and learning what could go better, what went well is really important. But I'll play devil's advocate here and I'll advocate for the future. I think a big thing in life in general and in business, planning ahead and knowing what's going to happen not only a month from now, but maybe 2 years from now is just as important as it is to reflect, because you need to know what's ahead of you and be able to plan for that effectively. So that is the stance I'll take for this. But I do agree with you both about the importance of reflecting on the past.
That was a good way to word it. You should definitely always plan ahead. I mean, yeah, there's always like only so much you can do to plan ahead, but it's always like it just makes you feel so much more at ease, like going into like an event or like a life milestone, just like, oh, I already knew this. Like 5 minutes from now, we're gonna go get some cake. for my wedding that I planned out already. Anyways, so we're gonna shift to question 2, topic 2. So we're gonna be talking about the definition of trend forecasting, which when I first read about it, I thought it was just talking about forecasting. So I looked up forecasting, but it's trend forecasting. So for forecasting, the definition from the dictionary is a transitive verb that is to calculate or predict some future event or condition, and it usually is a result of study and analysis of available pertinent data. So trend forecasting, going off of that, it is the process of researching and formulating predictions on future buying habits of consumers. By identifying the source, tracing evolution, and recognizing patterns of trends, forecasters are able to provide brands with a vision of the future. Now that's super big with like event planning, I know it's just especially, but even just for brands and companies as a whole, because then it's easier to understand both like the market that you have and like the consumers that are interested in your products and your services. So actually recently I read an article, it was on like Facebook, and it was a study of 21 college students, and they had an fMRI brain scan. So they were posed with 2 questions. One was to like recall a very specific past event, and one was to recall or think about a future specific event. So I think it was like, imagine you're going to get birthday dinner with your family. So normally what you think is the past and the future are different, right? But the brain scans showed that the same like points of your brain lit up in both questions. So as just like a ending sentence, the bottom line is memory is a really essential part to constructing scenarios for ourselves for the future. So like it also has to do with like reflecting on the past, like understanding how you work and how your brain works and how your brain like adjusts to things and your personality and everything about within that boat. So for the next question, I'm going to ask, does the focusing on the future and the past help with the, sorry, we're going to start over. Question is, does the past, no, one more time. Does focusing on the future and the past help with trend forecasting? Now, Jasmine, you're going to have to answer this one. Thank you.
Christine. Okay, one, when you said the word trend forecasting, the first thing that came to my head, I know you said the first thing that came to yours was like forecasting. First thing that came to my head was fashion forecasting. So, side note for the people in the back that didn't know, my major in undergrad, sounds like I'm so old. I love it. My major in undergrad was fashion merchandising. So I have a background in fashion. So when I first heard trend forecasting, I thought of fashion forecasting. When you read the definition, I was like, oh, that's like synonymous of what fashion forecasting is. Like you're using data to analyze what the trend is for the next coming season or what have you. So your question of does the future and the past that translate into trend forecasting? I definitely agree. I know that's something that that's something that we kind of went through when the pandemic hit. So right when the pandemic hit, of course, everyone's like, and you know, at that point, it's like fight or flight. What are you gonna do? So at that moment, I know Andre and I, we did a lot of, and Andre on her own did a lot of reflecting of, okay, what has worked? One, because during that same time, we had an event coming up within the matter of like a month. So we're like, okay, so we have to put our big girl panties on. We have to think of a plan. What do we know? What don't we know? What do we need to do research on? And then how can that be translated to this event and future events? Because this is our world, whether we like it or not. So I definitely think, one, yes, when you're reflecting on the future and the past, that can help with your trend forecasting. We had to do a lot of our own analysis or research. So we looked up a lot of articles and journals on event planning, and we actually found one of the future of what it'll look like at an event before anything was set in stone of social distancing and what have you. And that is what helped us shape events that we had already in the works that we had to produce within a month. So definitely it's needed. I will tell you, and this is something, being transparent and vulnerable, not something that's fun doing, because you have to definitely think a lot. You're like, okay, what has worked, what has didn't work, what do we think will work, how can we put that into, it's a lot of thinking, especially when you have to do it in a short amount of time, but it's so crucial. I definitely think you have to analyze the past, the present and the future to do some forecasting for some things that are happening later on.
Jasmine laying down the facts. That's wild. Because even like, okay, so I wasn't here at AEP when like the whole pandemic happened and the transition happened, but that's crazy. Like normally we're used to like adjusting like minor things, or maybe like adjusting like a link, adjusting like another platform. Yes. But they had to adjust the whole event, like in-person event, to online within like a month.
And let me say this. Shout out to DVS, Department of Veteran Services, Virginia Employment Commission, the Virginia Women Veteran Summit, because this was the event that we had to transition in like a month. It was all in person, and we had to transition it totally to virtual. One, it was a great success. People loved it, but that definitely tested us. And it was at the end of the event, like I said, it was an amazing event. And I wouldn't change it for anything, but I would say shout out to them.
That is so cool. Anyways, now we're going to pose the question to Miss Wisam. What was the question? We're going to look it up. So, does focusing on the future and the past help with trend forecasting?
Okay, first, before I start my answer, I just want to say that I love Jasmine's point about being transparent and vulnerable, because I think when you're looking at this sort of forecasting and you're looking ahead, that's something you got to do. You got to let down those walls in order to really break through and come up with new ideas and be able to put in that energy that's needed. So I just love that point that Jasmine said. I just had to bring that up. But I think, sorry, what was the question again? It was, I was just so taken away by
so
Jasmine
the question
telling us.
We keep forgetting for some reason. The question is, does focusing on the future and the past help with trend forecasting?
Okay. I got it now. I think that yes, it does 100%, because you have to reflect on the past in order to know what you've already been doing, and then you have to look at the future to see what's ahead. And I think now more than ever, technology is giving us a lot to look ahead for. And, there are all these platforms that are available for virtual events. There are all of these ways to connect with people. So I've seen here during my time at AAP is, we're constantly looking for ways to improve the connection in the event feeling, because I think, one of the best things about in-person events especially is you get this energy and this like excitement. You're at a place and you're seeing the lights or whatever, but then how do you translate that into virtual? And I think that's where that future planning really comes into play. And it's really about also being willing to be technologically advanced and know that you're not going to know everything. You're going to have to put in that time to learn it. And that's another thing with the future is you're going to have to put in more time than you may think in order to learn something. And it might be uncomfortable at first, but once you break through it, you'll see success and growth. And I think that's something really important.
That's huge. That is huge. The whole learning curve is literally so huge. Like for a month ago, I believe, we had an event that required a new platform that none of us had used before. So we did lots of training, lots of modules, lots of articles to read, lots of just like background research. And I think that the platform was really cool. I was in charge of the graphics, so it was like a whole website that I got to decorate and like make certain colors and like make different animations, and I was having a fun time. I mean, at first it was kind of scary because I never really did like coding or user interface at all before, but it gave me a good taste into it, and I think it's really, really cool. And like as our job as like event planners, especially with like our whole Bringing Joy brand, it's really important that like we go above and beyond like just like having the event on a website and just like putting like the banner up. We gotta have like the sparkles of like a live event, but like through a screen. It's really important to keep that. And now we're gonna go to our last question. So this question is, what do you hope for the future of business in the midst of a pandemic and an economic recession? So we're going to start with Wissam for this question.
Okay, awesome. So, first, I have to say, I read this Business Insider article and they asked 200, I think over 200 CEOs, sort of where they see the future and how business will be transformed, especially in light of COVID. And as we all know, I feel like everyone on the planet knows Zoom now. Although it was definitely here before 2020, during this time, it's just sort of skyrocketed. And so there was this quote that the CEO of Zoom said, and he said, hundreds of organizations and individuals have stepped up to help however they can during a very uncertain and stressful time. And I think that's something so important that's happening now. And kind of the hope for the future of business where there isn't a disconnect, but rather a greater connection, even though we might be further apart. And I think that's because there's so much more care and everyone's realizing, even if I'm talking to someone online via chat or whichever method, that's a real human because I'm living this experience right now. And I think it's broken down that sort of barrier in business and it's made people more empathetic and it's making you realize there are people behind those screens. And I think that's a big thing for business. And, I can't speak too much on the economy. I am not an economy major at all, but I think that in some sort of way will help and kind of little by little, we've seen great transformation, in business already, but I think little by little, there will continue to be some growth even through the challenges.
That was a super good way to word it. I know a lot of businesses are like taking their time. Well, not really taking their time, but a lot of businesses are not used to both like the societal change and the technological change that have happened due to the past like half year, couple months, been quite amount of months. But it's wild. I'm really proud of everybody, like every brand and every company for reaching out and like resourcing, outsourcing, like taking the time to both train their like employees and like rethink their brand standards and just trying to do better for both like the world and the environment that we're living in right now. So we're gonna ask the same question to Jasmine. So again, the question is, what do you hope for the future of business in the midst of a pandemic and economic recession?
I would say first starting off, I am grateful that a lot of when it comes to SWAM businesses, small businesses, I'm grateful that a lot of bigger corporations have aided and helped out the SWAM business community and provided different resources for us in regards to economic relief and things of that sort to help us still be still fruitful during the pandemic or still be able to do day-to-day things. So I do want to say that that has definitely helped keep a lot of business lights on during the pandemic because I know a lot of businesses have closed down. So I know that's one thing, especially for All About Presentation, that we're very, very grateful for. If we can have the question put back up so I remember what the whole question was. Thank you. But as far as what do I hope for the future of business in the midst of a pandemic, something that I hope for. Oh, okay. I'm going to reflect on. I'm going to want to reflect on AAP, and then I'm going to say as a whole. For AAP, what I hope for the future of the business in the midst of a pandemic is for us to keep growing as we have. So, as a full disclosure to you all About Presentation, we are, as you see, we are very grateful for the opportunities that we have been presented during the pandemic. We've been saying that they have been pandemic blessings, COVID blessings that we've had. We were able to sign some new clients. Shout out to our new clients, SBSD, Virginia Tech, NASA, a lot of great clients that we've been able to sign and work with. But I say something that I do hope for the future of the business is that we continue to grow and elevate so that we can create even better virtual events. We're doing slamming right now, but of course I do want us to not just be safe and secure in what we know, but to branch out and be able to expand our research knowledge, what we're providing to our clients and things of that sort, but also giving back to people as well. And that's something that we are also doing, giving back to other businesses, because we've been so grateful, giving back to others. For just businesses in general, I'm going to speak on SWAM, small businesses, small women, and minority-owned businesses. I want all of us to definitely what I hope for the future is for us to collaborate more. I definitely, in the midst of a pandemic, I feel like a lot of times before the pandemic, we're all like, this is just my opinion. A lot of it's like, so what I hope for now that we are in the pandemic, we're living in it. Now we have to become, okay, this is our life. Just have to go with it. I want us to be more collaborative with each other, and grow as a whole. We're all in this together. So that is definitely something that I am hopeful for the future.
That was a super good way to word it. I didn't think about there we go, but yeah, I think a collaborative world, or like just a society as a whole, moving forward into the future, is like a really, really good start. And I know like these past 20 minutes we've just been talking about like reflecting and like how we can better ourselves by looking through the past. But with that same note, you shouldn't always have to dwell on the past. I know a lot of influencers and YouTubers, they were I guess comparing themselves to where they were this time 12 months ago. So they'd be like, oh, I went to all these trips, I went to all these events, and I did all these things, and I made all this money. But they can't compare themselves to where they were then, because it was a different world, different environment, different society. So you shouldn't have to dwell on the past and beat yourself up on it. But you should also take that and reflect upon it and see how you can build a better environment for you and those around you, and just do better, I guess. So I guess we're gonna end soon. So just on that note, you should remember just to embrace change, but also know that if it seems daunting or scary, then just know that you're not alone. You're never alone. Change is inevitable, but it's always just looking on your perspective on change is good. Change can be good. Change can bring super cool opportunities that you might never know, that you might have never experienced if you didn't go for that change, So yes. And on that note, we're done with today's podcast. Please remember that every Friday at 4 p.m. we stream Giggles. 4 p.m. every Friday. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Isam and Jasmine, for joining me today. And have a good weekend, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.